Warning. This program may contain material that is controversial to some listeners. Spontaneous enlightenment may occur. The unusual.
That is impossible.
The mysterious.
Mommy, what is it?
The unexplained.
Oh my God.
Pure energy.
It's a paranormal show like no other.
Pure energy.
And it's here in Northeast PA. Paranormal Science.
Let's go check it out.
Good evening, everybody. Welcome to Paranormal Science. I'm Mark Keyes from the Pennsylvania Paranormal Association, and I'm here with Nancy Kamen from the Morning News. And we take a look each week at the supernatural world, an in-depth intellectual look. Right, Nance?
Yes, we do. And my co-host on the morning show, John Webster, very interested in what we're going to talk about today. He says that it is something he has tried to do. He thinks it would be fascinating to do, but he has not yet been successful. So I told him, tune in tonight, which I hope he's tuning in right now, and he can also maybe learn some of the steps to possibly be able to set yourself free and, willfully leave your body.
Yeah, I've had a lot of really crazy dreams over the past few years, and lucid dreaming, I think, is fairly close to out-of-body travel, and I have a lot of my own questions that I can't wait to ask and see what kind of information I can get. But this is a topic that just really fascinates me. It's a lot of fun. It could be really educational, I think, on a certain level.
Mm-hmm. And maybe some of us are doing it and we don't even know it.
Yeah,
when
absolutely.
we're sleeping at night, we might actually be going places. Yep. Sometimes it seems so real. You're at places that you've never been before, but boy, it looks real, and people and everything, the landscape. Who knows if we're leaving? So let's find out more about this.
Yeah, tonight we have Marilynn Hughes with us. She is the founder and CEO of the Out-of-Body Travel Foundation. She's an author of several books, and she's made many TV and radio appearances throughout the years. She's had thousands of her own experiences, and can't wait to talk to her. So, Marilynn, thank you for joining us tonight.
You're welcome. Thanks for having me.
Let's talk about out-of-body travel. Your website, I just let people know, too, if they want to check out more of this, outofbodytravel.org. What is out-of-body travel?
Well, it's when your spirit literally disconnects from the physical body and is able to travel either in the overlapping fourth realm or into higher spheres, and some people even go into lower spheres. So heaven, hell, and purgatory, basically.
Now, is that the same? I guess I hear people talk of astral travel a lot. That's essentially the same thing, right?
Well, there is a difference, even though most people view it as the same thing. But the astral realm is actually the fourth realm, which overlaps the third dimension, and that is like a mirror realm of this mortal realm, whereas out-of-body travel encompasses it all, because there are an infinite number of realms to travel. Once you go into 5 and above, you're going into infinite light realms. And then when you go down into the lower dimensional existences, 2 and 1, you're entering into darkness and evil and what would be the hell realms.
Now, I guess there are times when you may try to do this on your own and willfully do it, but you also hear stories about people who it happens to, I don't know, in an accident or a serious illness or some medical condition where they'll say, I was outside my body and I saw people, perhaps working on me or performing surgery. So it seems in some cases your body may do it without you even knowing about it or trying to do it.
That's true, and that's how it came upon me as well originally. And then, I learned more over time as to how to maneuver through it and to control it better. But control is a relative word, because I always tell people, don't set out to control the experience, because if you do, then you will limit the experience. Because one of the things I learned in my travels is if you allow God to direct your travels, you're going to experience a lot more powerful things, because God knows a whole bunch of things that we don't know. If we want to control it ourselves, we're going to do things like, check in on a friend and see if we can see something in their room that we can report back. But
or
if we allow God
go to Tahiti, go to the beach, do something like that. But you're saying that there's probably higher goals that God may have for us.
Right, and he'll end up taking you to places you could never have imagined. And so I always tell people, don't try to control it. You want to let God control it, because we're talking about something where you don't even know what's available out there, and you want to let God show you.
So this could be something of a real spiritual learning, I guess, right?
Well, yes, and in fact, that's the way we approach it entirely at the Out of Body Travel Foundation. One of our part of our mission statement is to reduce spiritual poverty around the world, in the tradition of Mother Teresa, who said spiritual poverty was worse than physical poverty. And it's absolutely true that the out-of-body travel experience has purpose, and part of that purpose is it begins in a serious seeker. It begins a process of purification of the soul that is sometimes grueling, but always very fruitful in the end. And that's what we discuss in all of our different books, but primarily most people start with the Mysteries of the Redemption. And all of our books, by the way, are downloadable for free at the website. So you can read them whether you can purchase them or not. They're downloadable for free.
Yeah, that's at outofbodytravel.org. Now, Marilynn Hughes, let's talk about, you said the experience that you had was, it might have been a medical condition, but something where you weren't trying to do it. And a lot of people, it seems, you hear stories when they have either a near-death experience or something where they say, I left my body. Why does that happen, and what happened to you?
Well, I think it happens, well, especially in the near-death experience, because medical science has advanced so much that we have so many people coming back from the brink of death, and I think that that's why it's happening with the near-death experiences. With the spontaneous out-of-body travel, I know in my case, I originally had a vision when I was about 9 years old that was, totally I didn't try to make it happen, in other words. And basically that vision was a mind-blowing, beautiful thing where the marble steps to heaven with the clouds and the angels surrounding the throne of God. And I was shown that there was some purpose that I would have later in life, and that this sort of thing would come back to me. It was a very powerful experience. And but it came back to me when I was about 22, I believe. And what happened was I just woke up one morning and was vibrating at such a rapid rate of speed. I didn't understand what this vibration was. I also had the typical sounds that you hear, which is, I compare it to the sounds of a jet engine. Other people compare it to trains and other things like that. But you have that sound around you, which is actually the sound of the astral plane, because it's a higher vibration than the one we exist in our physical bodies. And then you hear voices. And the voices are actually the thoughts of humanity that are kind of, you become acutely aware of. But anyway, I didn't know what was going on, so I was like, well, I guess I better get up. And as I tried to get out of bed, my light arm came out of my regular arm, and that's when I realized something else was going on. And I was able to fully disconnect from the body and had a pretty limited experience for the first time. But as the experiences progress, they go into all sorts of really fascinating things where you're really discovering yourself and the things that you yourself need to do to improve your spiritual life in this world. And also, a lot of stuff that tries to lead you towards your actual purpose in this world, in this lifetime. And a lot of people are always looking for that. And so these experiences are very good at directing people in that direction, too.
So a lot of times we may consciously think we want one thing, but our spirit might be telling us something else. Is that what you're saying? So when you say don't limit your experience, as a human being, we may be thinking one thing, but our spirit is pulling us somewhere else.
Absolutely. I know that in my case, I was a reporter at the time, and I never would have imagined that I would be writing about this sort of thing. But I was led very gently through the whole process, and without that guidance, I never would have thought of anything like this to do.
Now, you said you were...
Since that time, we have a lot of people come, a lot of the people who read the books and stuff come to our forums and talk about stuff. And as they start opening up and experiencing these things, the same kinds of things are revealed to them as to where God wants them and what He wants them to be doing with their gifts. in this world. And so it's a very helpful, guiding experience if handled properly.
Now, you said you were 9 years old when you first had your first experience with a very nice vision, it sounds like. But when you actually came out of your body, was that startling to you at 9?
Oh, yeah, it was. Not at 9, because the time when it happened at 9, it was just so awe-inspiring what was before me. It was like the definitiveness of the existence of God was so profoundly there. I was just in awe, just staring up at the throne and all the angels and listening to what they had to tell me. And that's recounted in the Mysteries of the Redemption. But it did really scare me the first time it came upon when I was about 22, because I didn't really know what was happening. Sometimes people mistake it for, am I dying? You know what I mean?
Right.
Yeah, that's what I've actually heard. A lot of people are worried, even if they have an idea it might be an out-of-body experience, they're still afraid that they might not get back into their body.
Exactly. And some people really just think, this could be, maybe I'm dying, maybe there's something wrong with me and I don't even know it, But it was also very much the powerfulness of the experience can be very intimidating. When you enter into that vibrational state, what you're actually feeling is the higher vibration of the spiritual body. The particles of the spiritual body vibrate at a much higher rate than that of our physical body. And then the sounds. And a lot of people, not necessarily on the first experience, but somewhere along the way, will also connect into what I call the God mind. Other people have different names for it, but you're tuning into, you feel the knowledge of God is like somehow downloaded into you. And so for a moment, while you're there, you understand everything. Everything makes sense,
Yeah, you hear that. You hear that from people who have near-death experiences as well.
Exactly. Yes.
Do most of us travel out of our body and don't even know it, or is it not something that most people do?
Most people do travel out of their body at night on a subconscious level, and there's all sorts of things that happen during those times, depending on what kinds of issues those people may have or things they're trying to work through. You'll see, like I've been taken to a lot of different types of places and been allowed to watch how angels work with us with different life issues, but also they work with us on becoming more able to be aware of our spiritual body and stuff. So they help people also who are getting ready to have the experiences. But for those who are completely unaware of it, a lot of times they are being worked on subconsciously. And it's usually very much related to some kind of life issue that is going on with them at the time. Sometimes it's grief. Sometimes it's people who have trouble receiving love. Just trying to think of some random things. So there's a lot of those kinds of things that happen.
Are any of those things that happen, do any of those happen by people alive here on Earth? Meaning, can somebody praying for somebody else help to direct this kind of, angelic activity or something? Or I often wonder if there's things as human beings we can do also that might help other people.
Prayer is really, really profoundly powerful. And several times in my experiences, I saw prayer like lightning. It was like if you can imagine like the widest expanse of the plains, and lightning just going up to the heavens all around you. That's the way prayer was shown to me, as the prayers of the people going up. And in Catholicism, there's the concept of purgatory, which I've experienced in my mystical experiences, wherein when you pray for somebody, you're giving them almost like refreshment, a sip of water. And it is amazing what prayer will do to help like someone who has passed over go through the purification process that they might need to undertake. And that's why in Catholicism, praying for the dead is a very important part of the devotion. But also, we can pray for those who are living, as you're talking about, in asking for them to also receive assistance. We have friends who are going through something really difficult. We can absolutely do that. I know that I utilize a Catholic prayer that is based on the true blood of Christ, and I think it's a very powerful prayer, but there are a lot of them that are very powerful. And a lot of these things are available on my website. One of the things that I recommend to a lot of people is the Chaplet of the Divine Mercy. A lot of people don't know that there are promises associated with that chaplet, that if you pray that chaplet for someone who has crossed over, if they are having difficulty getting to where they need to go, they'll immediately be given entrance into heaven. And so I utilize the Chaplet of the Divine Mercy. A lot of the members on my forum also do as well. And in mystical experiences that I've had, I've actually seen souls, who needed prayer, who needed help, and then, you pray that for them, and then I see their deliverance,
Yeah, we're talking with Marilynn Hughes about out-of-body travel. She is with the Out-of-Body Travel Foundation, and she is the founder and the CEO. You can go to her website, outofbodytravel.org. We're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we'll talk more about out-of-body travel and what you can do to help, facilitate the process and actually do out-of-body travel yourself. Stay with us. You are listening to Paranormal Science on WILK.
Welcome back. You're listening to Paranormal Science on WILK, and tonight's guest is Marilynn Hughes. She's the founder and CEO of the Out-of-Body Travel Foundation, and she's written several books on the subject of out-of-body experiences, and she's made many television appearances, including Joan Rivers several years ago. I watched a clip on her website, and that was very interesting. You could find out more about all the topics that she has listed on her website at outofbodytravel.org. And Marilynn, thank you once again for coming on the show with us tonight.
Well, thank you for the invitation.
All right, so let's talk a little bit. You said at 9 you had an experience where you saw what you thought was a vision of heaven with angels. At 22, you were waking up and you experienced certain sensations, and you actually saw your arm leave your body and were able to disconnect. What are some of the things we talked about at night when people go to sleep and perhaps they are leaving their body? What are some of the telltale signs that when they're waking up, it may tell them that they may have been out of their body?
Well, some people will feel like a warmth and a buzzing sensation in their body, almost like a really peaceful kind of thing. Some people won't feel anything at all if they were totally subconscious. You know what I mean?
Sure.
People who are conscious of it will often come back and actually go through the reentry process and feel the vibrations as they slow down as they're reentering into the physical form, and then they awaken. And they're usually kind of glazed over, enjoying the moment.
Well, I'll tell you, I had a few experiences. I don't know if this would have been out-of-body travel or just something else, but where I was awake, but I couldn't open my eyes, and I felt as if I was spinning or rolling. And I knew I was awake, but I felt almost like I was disconnected and could not make the muscle movements. It took perhaps a minute to 2 minutes where I could literally, open my eyes, move my arms and stuff. Would that be something that was that, or it could have been something else?
It could have been a precursor to it. There is a condition called sleep paralysis that sometimes mimics that, but it is very similar to what some people experience before going out of their body. One thing to remember, though, is that when you have an out-of-body experience, you'll know for sure that you had it. It's so profoundly powerful and conscious that you have no doubt.
Okay, so it's not something where you'd say, was I just there because perhaps...
Well, you might have been in a precursor phase where you're preparing
to go,
to get closer to it, yes.
Yeah, one of the things I've done in my research, talking to a lot of clients, you just struck on something there that I've often thought and passed along. People will say that they feel like they wake up in the middle of the night and they feel like there's something holding them down on their chest. They can hear voices around them. They feel like there's somebody in the room with them, but they can't see anybody. They can't move. Could this also be a precursor to an out-of-body event?
That could be, and that kind of brings up a little bit of a can of worms in the sense of if someone's holding you down, it could be, then you have to go into the area of is this from darkness or from the light, from God or from something below. But there's ways to discern that, and I talk about that in great depth in my books as well. We have a whole book on spiritual warfare, angels and demons, and knowing how to determine if your experience is being directed by something from God or something else that you might not want to be directed by.
So are you saying that there are entities outside of ourselves that may want to, can they come into our space, so to speak, or try to come into our, I don't even know if the word would be spirit, soul, or just our body or vessel?
Absolutely. What you have out there is you have many, many different orders of angels, so many that it would be hard to describe them here, but they're talked about in the books. But there are also just as many orders of demons. And the interesting thing that a lot of people don't realize is that in the middle, so to speak, in the third and fourth mortal realms in the center, which is kind of where we all are, there's a lot of what I call lost souls and wandering spirits. And so, they all have a different purpose. The spirits of the light are the ones that are working for God and want to help us. Obviously, the demonic spirits want to lead people astray, and of course, these are the things you need to be aware of because possessions do occur or things like that. That's what Catholic exorcists are for. And then with the lost souls and the wandering spirits, you'll see them a lot around like Ouija boards and things like that. They can be more where they're playing around, but it doesn't make their playing around any more or any less, dangerous. Because of the fact that they are lost and they are wandering spirits, they don't really have anything of value to share with anyone down here, and they will always lead people astray. And sometimes they even do it just because it's fun. So they're kind of like tricksters in that way sometimes. Not always, but sometimes. But it's very important to know. And in my books, I do explain how this process works and how to discern and do the proper biblical discernments and other things that are necessary to make sure that you are dealing with forces that are coming from Jesus Christ and not coming from any other, bad source.
Well, you just hit on a point there that I was sort of going to with my next question. When I was preparing for the show, I talked to several people about this, and one of the biggest questions I get is, can this be dangerous, and what can you do to protect yourself from that? And I guess would the danger be in coming across something negative, or is there something physically with the body that could go wrong?
I've never seen anything physically with the, usually not with the physical body, but in rare cases, like for people who are called to spiritual warfare, they can have actual physical body damage. But the thing to be very aware of is that this is part of why we go back to allowing God to direct your experiences. Because when we try to control it ourselves, we're in a sense violating somewhat of the eternal law. And the eternal law directs that awakening and that opening. So when we push it and force it, it allows for things that wouldn't come in if we're doing it prayerfully with contemplation, meditation, and prayer, and with the proper protection. But also, the other thing that you want to be aware of is that these darker forces do have the ability to be very, very good at disguise. And so you want to take things at the proper order. And I speak about a lot of this stuff in Come to Wisdom's Door, How to Have an Out-of-Body Experience, and it also goes into a lot more depth in the Mysteries of the Redemption at the outofbodytravel.org site, which is, you can download those books for free, and it'll give you a lot more detail on all that stuff.
Can you tell us a little bit about what people can do to prepare, to try to learn? I'm sure that most people aren't going to sit down and be able to leave their body as soon as they start trying. But are there certain, exercises mentally we can do to try and make it easier to do out-of-body travel?
A lot of it really pertains to discipline of the mind. I do go into like a series of what I call fears and blocks that are really common for people in Come to Wisdom's Door. Just a few that I can throw out. Some people have a tremendous fear of seeing a ghost, and that will block them from having this experience because they're going to see ghosts. Some people are very afraid of losing control. And when you go into that vibrational state, you're going to not be in control. But the main things that I primarily try to get people to realize is that there is a process of meditation, prayer, contemplation, And these are lengthy things. In the beginning, when you're really trying to cultivate and discipline your soul and your body to be more still and receptive to this sort of thing, I tell people that they might meditate for 3 hours at a time on a daily basis if they can. And the reason for that is because it takes a lot of that stillness and that silence and just that focus on allowing those things to come in. Another thing that's really important, and this is something that is also stated by many of the Catholic saints, that spiritual reading is really, really important. And I encourage a lot of people on our website. We have a section called Mystical Theology, has some of the greatest writings by some of the greatest mystics throughout time. And these kinds of things also place your spirit and your soul in the right place for the experiences to happen. Now, I have had a lot of people tell me as well that they start spontaneously having experiences as they read the Mysteries of the Redemption. And I think the reason for that is because they're following like a gradual opening of the soul, and it's opening up the possibilities in their mind and their spirit, and thus it becomes more possible for them. But they usually need to do all these other things as well, the meditation, a lot of time in prayer, the stillness and the silence.
You talked about some of the things that are blocks, and you said, the fear of seeing a ghost, and we will see ghosts. How do we see ghosts? What do the ghosts look like?
Well, sometimes they appear, like people, just like regular people, full color and everything, but sometimes they appear like the shadowy image of the person. Sometimes if you're dealing with various kinds of lost souls, they won't let you see them for a while, and you'll just feel them, and then eventually they'll manifest. And it's usually, you're going to meet the person, and they're lost because something went wrong in their crossing over. It might have been that some of them didn't believe in life after death. Some of them had a really traumatic death. Some of them didn't live the kind of life that would be conducive to a really clear entry into heaven. Some are doing purgatory.
Now, on the subject of ghosts, this is interesting timing. I got an email from a woman who said she was in bed with her 2 young daughters, and the bedroom door was closed, and she could actually hear her daughter giggling and talking outside the bedroom door. And we often get reports from clients on paranormal investigations where they will report seeing, a son or a daughter actually like run up a stairway, but then they look and they're sleeping in their bed. And is that something you think they could be having out-of-body experiences, and the living family is actually sitting there seeing that in some aspect?
I think that can happen. And I've had experiences like those too, and I think sometimes it may actually be happening that they're having an out-of-body experience that they may not be aware of, or might be, and or it can also just be, a dream. But at the same time, with children especially, children as they're younger, it's amazing what they will talk about and the kinds of things that they're open to that are natural to them, which as they grow older oftentimes diminishes because they're basically recent entries into this world. So the heavenly things and the traveling is not so foreign to them when they're smaller children.
Is there a better time of day or night to do this? Like, is there a peak period where you might have the best opportunity to have an experience like this?
I think it can happen at any time. I know in my own experiences, I often would do deep meditation in the afternoon, 3-4 hours, and then would go into an experience. Sometimes it happens right in the middle of the night, but one of the interesting things that I've had happen, and I've had a lot of people report to me, is that sometimes it's that early morning twilight period where things are more likely to happen. And because so many people have told me that they have experienced that too, I think that might be an unusually active time.
Now, I've heard this. I don't know if it's true or not, but could you actually set the intent with maybe 2 or 3 other people to meet up at a specific location like Disney World?
Well, I don't know about Disney World, but I do know that a lot of people do have the ability to meet in the spirit, and usually they'll meet in higher realms because they're looking to be instructed and taught either by the angels or by Christ or in whatever way. people can do that. It's usually people who are really putting a lot of effort and energy and time into the cultivation of those gifts with one another. And it has to be, if it's just for the sake of doing something that's, like a parlor trick is what I call it, with the little tricks that we try to do in the physical plane, then it's not going to be as successful. But if you're actually doing it for a spiritual purpose, a lot of the people I know who do this sort of thing, they put out the intention to go do that, to be instructed, and also to offer prayer for those that they might be aware of who need prayer. And so you go out with an altruistic purpose, and you're going to have a lot more success, because God supports the intention of moving closer to God, learning more about God, and helping our fellow man. One of the things people would probably be really surprised by is how much of the out-of-body experience is directed towards working subconsciously with other people on the earth who are going through various traumatic experiences, and also, helping with souls who are crossing over, whether they be lost souls or something totally different.
We're talking with Marilynn Hughes. She is founder of Out of Body Travel Foundation. You can find out more about her books, the website outofbodytravel.org. You're listening to Paranormal Science on WILK.
You're listening to Paranormal Science on WILK, and tonight we're talking with Marilynn Hughes. She is the founder and CEO of the Out of Body Travel Foundation, and you can check out her website at outofbodytravel.org. And if you have any questions or comments that you'd like to ask us, as always, you could email us at theppa.net, paranormalscience@theppa.net. And find us on Facebook. You can like us there and give us your comments or questions as well.
Yeah, just search for Paranormal Science. So we get back to our discussion with Marilynn Hughes about out-of-body travel. Marilynn, when you speak, you talk a lot about Catholicism. I was going to ask you your religious background, so I'm guessing it's in Catholicism. But how much of a role does religion play in out-of-body travel?
Well, I think it's different for different people, because I do believe that a lot of us who have been called to do this have been called to bring out different aspects of the experience. For instance, Robert Monroe, who I'm sure a lot of people know, founder of the Monroe Institute, it seems that he had a lot of purpose in bringing out the scientific aspects of bringing about out-of-body experiences. In my own experiences, religion has played a huge role. From early on, I was shown to start gathering the ancient sacred texts from all the world religions from throughout time, and I've had a lot of experiences with many of the prophets, saints, mystics, ascetics, and sages from all of these world religions around the world. And so a lot of the work that I have on my site introduces people to the fact that we've had some really avid astral travelers, out-of-body travelers throughout time, who have left in writing, the footsteps. I look at it as their footsteps to kind of like the end game, the goal of why we're here. And they're still available out there, and thanks to the Internet, they're becoming more and more available. One of the books that I wrote that is one of my favorites is called Forgotten Mystics in World Religions, Lesser-Known Out-of-Body Experiences. And one of the reasons for that is we've been able to resurrect a lot of these mystics who were forgotten from, the last 5,000 years. And their works are just as relevant today as they were at the time that they were alive. And when we bring together these amazing mystical experiences from all these different traditions from throughout time, in my view, it does bring together a much greater understanding of who God is. Because I believe that every mystic has a certain message or purpose in their mystical experiences that they bring in.
Now, organized religion, though, a lot of them may not be so, they don't embrace a lot of what you're talking about, though, do they?
Well, mysticism itself is very common, like in Catholicism, not as much in Protestantism. In Buddhism, Hinduism, Judaism, and Islam, they all have very rich mystical traditions. A lot of people don't realize that, but they have a
they have it, in the history of it, but does organized religion today really support a lot of what this is about?
A lot of mystical experiences.
Yeah, I mean, it just seems to me that a lot of them maybe, and I know that Catholicism, I don't think they're really supportive, are they, of a lot of what we talk about with the paranormal, leaving your body?
You'd be surprised. I'm not saying, of course, the Catholic Church doesn't agree with everything I say.
Right.
But, we have, in every diocese, it's especially since the movie The Rite was released, a lot of people have become aware that every diocese has an exorcist, and every diocese also has a deliverance priest. And these deliverance priests are actually going to homes and taking care of hauntings. And, so they're dealing with, these are, and they're...
It's happening more. Yes, it's happening more now. Like, just as more people are able and comfortable talking about the paranormal, it does seem to be that a lot of that stuff that at one time was taboo is now being done and talked about.
I think so. And, it does depend on the circle, because... And when you come to Christianity, it depends on the denomination, and sometimes it depends on just the individuals in a particular faith. Sometimes, you'll see, like in Catholicism, there's people who are more focused on the dogmatic side of the church, and then there's others who are more focused on the mystical theology side of the church. And like in the deliverance ministry, it's more the charismatic gifts of the church. And so you have different aspects, and sometimes those aspects, whether it's the Catholic Church or Buddhism or any of these other religions, Judaism, may not always understand one another. But it doesn't mean that those things are not part of their body of faith. But, although I am personally Catholic, there are some things that I believe that would not be accepted by the Catholic Church.
Yeah, I talk to a lot of the younger people within the church, and I really think, it might be years from now, but there's going to be a big change within the church because so many of these younger people are really open to these experiences.
I think that the church is becoming more where they are looking into these things more. They're trying to bring, educated observance onto our experiences so that we can take, the teachings of the church and use a discernment process with our experiences. But that kind of goes back to what we talked about earlier as well, which is the being aware that there are there's good and evil out there, and that there are good spirits and there are evil spirits, and we can be deceived. Any of us can be deceived. And so I think that's part of what they're going to be doing in that. But, the interesting thing is some of the greatest Catholic mystics are also doctors of the church. And so mysticism in the proper context is very much accepted by the Catholic Church, but not necessarily all kinds of mysticism. Does that make sense?
Yes. Marilynn, you've been on, you said, many astral journeys or out-of-body journeys because it's not all astral. Can you tell us, I'd like to just get an example of maybe one that wasn't so pleasant that you maybe went on and what happened, and perhaps tell us, one that was pretty inspiring or just really great when you think back.
Well, okay. The one that comes for the difficult experiences was, I would say it was like my 40 days in the desert one, where I was taken into basically hell, and I was put through a series of temptations, and I passed through them, and then when I finally got through the series of temptations, and these are all documented in the Mysteries of the Redemption, so anyone can check that out, downloadable for free. So I was then taken to this open field, and I heard this hideous voice, and it said, "Serve me, serve a real master." I can't even imitate the voice. It was just a horrible voice.
Yeah.
I knew it was Satan, and I basically told him where to go,
and he was already there.
I was carefully delivered from the realm, and actually had to go through some purification. It's a very interesting experience, more lengthy, and it's detailed in that book. I've had a lot of really fascinating ones too. This one I'm going to tell you comes from Galactica, a treatise on death, dying, and the afterlife. And it was a really, really beautiful experience wherein I was shown the 54 steps, the 54 mystical steps of the Mass. And I was taken from Earth, I was going on these steps, and each of these steps had a picture of Jesus Christ performing one aspect of the Holy Catholic Mass. And as I arrived at the top step, I entered into this cave, and Padre Pio, Saint Padre Pio now, was there with two other priests, and he told me that he wanted me to see how the Eucharist becomes alive. One of the things that drew me to the Catholic Church was the true presence of Christ in the Holy Eucharist. And as I entered into that cave, the Eucharistic host came to life, and it was just bursting with energy. And then, there were some more aspects to this experience. It was a very beautiful experience. But one of the things that I wrote about in another book that some people might find interesting about that is in Eucharistic Miracles. It's in a book called Miraculous Images on our site, and you can download it for free. And it shows in full color some of these amazing Eucharistic miracles where these hosts have actually started bleeding. Some of them have turned into flesh. There's even one or two that actually have turned into beating hearts. And so the Eucharistic miracles were one of the things that drew me to the Catholic Church as well.
Now, one question I've always had and always wondered is when you come out of one of these out-of-body experiences, out-of-body travel, does this feel like it's a really vivid dream, or is it more like I just got back from a trip and now I'm home?
It's more like the second. And, one of the things I tell people, which is hard for people to relate to, but that it's more conscious than if I'm sitting here talking to you in a room. It's so unbelievably conscious. There's no doubt where you were and what just happened. And it is kind of hard sometimes, and a lot of people tell me this who have the experiences as well. It's hard to come back. You don't want to because it's just so beautiful and peaceful, and you're connecting to, the God mind. But, one of the purposes of these experiences that can be said in a very simple way is that every time you're going into these heavenly realms anyway, there's these other purposes with the lower realms, which you can understand better by reading some of the books. But one of the purposes in going to these higher realms is that every time you go, you're bringing a little bit of heaven to earth. And that's kind of the purpose, because we're trying to make this a more peaceful world, trying to bring as much love and forgiveness and other good qualities and traits into this world. And every time we go there and come back, we bring back some of it. While you're there, you have all this knowledge and everything makes sense. But when you return basically almost as dumb as you were before, but with maybe a little bit something that you were allowed to take with you, just a little piece of something very, very powerful or enlightening. And so every time you do it, you're bringing a little bit more.
Do you ever get a chance to see what might be possible in the future? Is there anything that might be warning us or telling us of something? I'm talking like as a people here, a human race, that, dangers that are ahead? I
have seen quite a few things about stuff that's already happened and stuff that could be to come. And a lot of it really depends. In the 20th century, there were so many Marian apparitions around the world. And one of the things that she said, which is really kind of the gist of what I've been shown too, is that we have a choice. And she asks us to pray the rosary and to pray the rosary for peace. And I think that if we all did that, there might be more hope for relieving some of this really bad energy that's around us. And one of the more controversial things that I share is that what I've seen repeatedly is different civilizations that are not of this earth who are kind of hovering around, watching and waiting to see what we'll do. Because basically we can either blow ourselves back to the Stone Age, or we can end up moving into more of a galactic civilization where we may, at some point, I don't know how many hundreds of years it might take, but we might become part of the galactic system. Just like, when Christopher Columbus discovered the Americas, when we finally do connect with the other worlds that are out there, it will be a big change in the whole world.
Now, something I want to touch on briefly, because I know this is important. People who have a lot of trouble often will jump on the internet and they'll turn to illegal hallucinogens or to supplements that you find online, and they're everywhere. I guess there's an inherent danger in trying to do this with the illegal hallucinogens, but is there anything of value, any herbal supplements that are even worth it, or is the stuff you find online just basically bogus?
Well, my own, personal opinion is you should never utilize any foreign substance, and for several reasons. One is the obvious, is what you're talking about, the possible dangers. Secondly, you're trying to force or induce an experience. Now, I've heard from many, many people who have done that, and they've had some really fascinating experience. But, I've also heard from a lot more people who were, pushed into a level of consciousness that they were not ready for, and it messed them up,
So it didn't,
and that's why
work.
you try to let God direct the experience, even if it takes longer, because it's just, when you let God direct it, it will come naturally and it will come safely, and not in a way that could cause some kind of difficulty conscious-wise.
Right, down the road.
Physically.
Right. We've been talking with Marilynn Hughes, Out of Body Travel Foundation, and the website is outofbodytravel.org. Thanks so much for being with us. You have downloadable free ebooks online, and I guess also I'm seeing music, art, magazines, and videos on your website.
That's right. And we have tons of resources, so anything you're interested in, you can check it out on the website.
Well, I can't believe we got to stop. I got like 1,000 more
I know,
questions
we got
here.
more things. But
Yeah, I'm going to jump online and look at a lot of your stuff there. It's been so nice talking with you. I learned a lot.
Great talking with you guys, too.
So now we have homework, and perhaps we'll be able to learn how to travel out of our body. I think that would be absolutely amazing.
It sounds like a lot of fun as well.
That is if my higher purpose is to do something fun. Who knows?
That's true.
I don't know what my purpose would ever be to go look at hell, but maybe, like she said, she had to go through, the 40 days in the desert.
Yeah, I guess I could go either way for you, depending on what your soul is needing to learn.
Right. All right, so what do we have coming up next Sunday night on Paranormal Science?
Next Sunday, we'll be talking with angel intuitive Lorraine Recchia. We'll learn about how to co-create with our angels and how to connect with our angels. And Nancy, you and I are going to get a mini reading all about angels, and we're going to let our listeners hear what that's like.
Okay, that's coming up next Sunday night. We hope you'll join us, 8 o'clock p.m. right here on WILK's